Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Abraham Oyewole. In this video I'm going to explain the launch process involved in the Citrix virtual apps and desktop. This is for the internal network only. For the external network, other components has to be involved, like gateway. But for the internet network, there are some steps that are involved in the launch process. In the flow, we have authentication for step 1. Step 2, we have resource enumeration. Step 3, we have resource launch. And step 4, we have session initialization. For user authentication, Citrix Workspace app contact storefront using HTTP protocol or HTTPS. HTTP is non-secure on port 80. HTTPS is a secure web traffic on port 443. For HTTPS to work, you're gonna need SSL certificate installed on your environment. Look at the red arrows in the diagram. That shows us that this user has not been verified yet. The communication between servers will have blue arrows, and communication from server to end user is going to have green. Let's continue. When user open up their apps, they type their web address of the storefront. Storefront presents an authentication page. Now user can, in step 3, they can enter their username and password and submit their credential. Then storefront contacts Active Directory server, your AD, using Kerber's service on port 88. That is to authenticate the user. Then Active Directory will return response to storefront. Now storefront server can allow the user to log into the store. That completes authentication process. Resource enumeration. In resource enumeration, we have assumed that our user has been fully authenticated. Storefront passes user credentials to delivery controller. Communication between storefront and delivery controller is taking place using TCP port 80 or TCP port 443. This is to know the list of available resources for that specific user. The delivery controller now contacts AD for LDAP request using port 389, non-secure LDAP. Port 6389 is secure LDAP. That is to identify which which group the user belongs, or which group membership the user belongs. All those information can be fetched from the Active Directory. When that information is collected, the delivery controller will use that information to query database. So this database SQL server delivery controller will contact that using port 1433. This is to obtain user, apps, and desktop metadata information. You know, when user belongs to a group, delivery group of that user will have some application that is attached to them, or if they have desktop that is attached to them. All those information is being recorded in the database, in the site database. Now, delivery controller have more information. We gather the icons the user can use to launch their session. It's gonna collect that information and pass it over to the storefront server. Now, the storefront server will present those resources available directly to user store web-based application or from their Citrix workspace app. They can see the storefront with their icons on the screen. Now, the next process is the resource launch process. The user will now clicks an icon. When user clicks the icon in their store, remember the user has been verified. The communication now is going. This is a valid user, but we still don't know yet whether the application is available for that user or the desktop is available for that user. That's why the storefront server will contact the delivery controller. Again, that is taking place using port 80 or port 443. Delivery controller will query SQL database again, just to identify the most suitable VDA. It's doing this on port 1433, 1433. Because we may not have available app server or virtual desktop for that user. So that's why delivery controller must query database to know the availability of those resources or which one is the best that is suitable for to accept session for that user. Then delivery controller contacts the VDA directly on port 80. It could be server operating system that is running virtual delivery agents or desktop operating system running virtual delivery agent. The difference between the two: on server OS there is multi-session going on. It can accept multiple users to use session on that server. For desktop OS, only one user can use desktop OS at a time, and server OS always listed for connection, where desktop OS does not always listen. Now, when delivery controller contacts VDA, VDA will return a session key to delivery controller, because the delivery agent running on this machine is very important to identify where that VDA is and if the session is available for the user. Delivery controller will collect that information and other information about the VDA and send it to storefront. Now, storefront server is going to put all those information, it's going to package it together and turn it into a file that is ICA file. It has .ica extension. So this default .ica file will be sent to the user. That is the file the user is going to download to launch their session. What happens next is that user clicks, or when user receives the ICA file, they can launch the session, and that session is going to be established on port 1494 and port 2598. 1494 is for ICA protocol, 2598 is for session reliability. This is going to be used because that file is some information about the VDA. It contains information about the VDA particularly. What VDA is going to do at that time is to notify the delivery controller that I have a session going on. Now the delivery controller wants to validate and verify there is license. So delivery controller contacts the license server on port 7279. That's to check out the license on behalf of the device or user that's connected to the environment. When that is done, the delivery controller will update Citrix server. It's going to update the information and commit the change, those changes on SQL Server database. The session information to the site database will be updated. Now the session can begin. User can now interact with application, or if it's desktop resources, using port 1494 and port 2598 based on session reliability. That's how we have our user using back-end resources. Now what happens if we have some troubleshooting problems? So these are the tips according to Citrix. Under authentication, if you see user cannot log on, you know that is basically Active Directory authentication problem. You want to make sure that the user is a member of AD and is a member of certain group. Check under resource enumeration, if there is no app or desktop available for user at that time, maybe user has not been assigned any resources or user is in the wrong user group. You want to make sure that storefront have access to delivery controller. Make sure there's no wrong address or XML port. Check delivery controller for broker services. Make sure it's not down or you can restart those services. Make sure there's no wrong SSL certificate on delivery controller if you are using HTTPS. Make sure that delivery controller does not have any communication problem with the site database. Although delivery controller may have local host cache, but that cannot run forever. So make sure that the transaction between SQL database and delivery controller can go on without any problem. Under resource launch, if there's no ICA file downloaded, make sure there is no communication problem between delivery controller and the VDA. If you remember, the delivery controller and the VDA, they have some work to do together. Here, delivery VDA will have to send a session key, and that session key will be turned to a package that the storefront server will present to the user. For under session initiation, if we have some registration problem, we want to make sure that the firewall port is not blocked. Make sure that we don't have any DNS resolution problem. I'm gonna do another session on VDA registration and some other common problem in Citrix. If you have any question, just let me know. And thanks for your time. Bye for now.